Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We got a great show for you. First, the sheriff who shot the judge. We're going to tell you what we know. We almost have a jury in the Delphi murder case. And is the prosecutor getting sleazy already? Will the Menendez brothers be home for Christmas? Juvenile killers learn their final fate. And we have an update on the missing mom in San Antonio. We have this day in legal history and our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do. Leave me a comment below. Hit that little bell for notifications. And yes, remember that you can check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps. All right. As you can tell, not in a suit today. Have to go hit the road, go to the other side of the state. Got a court appearance. Unfortunately, Crime Talk 1 is not done yet, but we are getting close. The landing gear should have shipped on Friday. So yes, we'll be back in the air soon. Anyway, we'll see, depending on the travel today, whether we go live tonight. So keep watching. Check us out. Now, before we get to today's docket, go to crimetalksearch.com. Sign up for that background subscription service because you're going to be happy that you did. When you sign up for that background subscription, you can search anyone, as many people as you desire, as long as they're here in the United States. And you're going to get a background report literally emailed to you while you wait, and it's going to have all kinds of information. Their social media footprint. It's going to give you information as to emails, phone numbers. Do they have a criminal history? Are they on a public registry of some type? You know what I mean? Are they divorced? Are they married? Everything you're going to want to know about somebody before you get involved with them in your life. Go to crimetalksearch.com. You're going to be happy that you did. All right, let's go ahead and open the record and do the docket for Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. First, what do we know about the sheriff and the judge case down there in Kentucky? You know, the sheriff that shot his friend, the judge. So it's been a month since the Kentucky sheriff was arrested at the scene of the district judge's shooting. And the case against Sean Mickey Steins is now in the hands of a grand jury for a potential indictment. Ladies and gentlemen, there will be an indictment, and it will be an indictment for first-degree murder. Well, the then sheriff, who has since stepped down from his position as sheriff, is accused of fatally shooting District Judge Kevin Mullins in his private chambers at the Lechner County Courthouse back in late September. Now, obviously, the former sheriff has pled not guilty to the charges of murder, and his attorney is hinting to a possible defense strategy this week, which basically says, hey, this was nothing more than reckless manslaughter. Heat of passion is really what it boils down to. So here's a timeline of what we know thus far, all right? Now, prior to the fatal shooting there in Whitesburg, the two men were known to be friends for many years. And according to the Facebook account, Steins is from Neon, Kentucky, and resides in McRoberts, an unincorporated community there in Lechner County. Now, Steins had served as a bailiff in Mullins Court for several years before he was actually elected sheriff in 2018. We know Judge Mullins lives in nearby Jenkins, which is about 15 miles east of Whitesburg on Kentucky's border with Virginia. And beginning back in 2001, Mullins served as an assistant Commonwealth attorney there in Lechner County, and he was appointed to the position of judge in the 47th Judicial District, which provides over the Lechner County. Now, he was appointed by then Governor Steve Beshear, and he was elected to the position that following year. Now, on September 19th, just before 3 p.m., the Kentucky State Police received a report of shots fired inside the courthouse, and the Lechner County Coroner's Office pronounced the judge dead at the scene. Now, no one else was injured, thank goodness, and the Sheriff Steins surrendered himself to police without incident, and he was arrested at approximately 3 p.m. and booked into the Leslie County Detention Center, about an hour drive from the Lechner County Courthouse. Now, the Lechner County Courts invoked an emergency order to cease all operations that day until normal operations could be resumed. Now, about a week after the shooting, Steins appeared virtually for an arraignment while he was jailed at the Leslie County Detention Center, like I said, about 50 miles east of Whitesburg, Kentucky there. Anyway, Steins, who's now facing murder charges, pled not guilty on that day. Now, while he appeared at the hearing with representation from the Office of the Public Defender, Mr. Steins would later hire a private attorney by the name of Jeremy Bartley. So the Kentucky attorney for the 27th Judicial Circuit, Jackie Steele, serves as prosecutor after the Lechner County Commonwealth's attorney, Matt Butler, recused himself due to family ties with Judge Mullins. Now, following pressure from Governor Andy Beshear, Steins announced his resignation from his role as sheriff, a position that he had held for about 5 years. Now, just a day ahead of his afternoon court appearance at the Morgan County Judicial Center. Now, about a week prior, Beshear formally requested Steins resign in a letter from the Attorney General. Now, while Beshear's letter asked for a resignation, the Kentucky governor said that if Steins didn't step down, he'd move forward with removal under a statute that allows for such removal if there is some sort of neglect that the sheriff is participating in there at his office. At the preliminary hearing, where Steins appeared in person, the prosecution played the video of Judge Mullins being fatally shot inside his own chambers. And in that short clip, a man who police identified as the former sheriff is seen firing multiple times at Judge Mullins and as the judge attempted to hide behind the desk. Now, the preliminary hearing also introduced new information about the events leading up to the fatal shooting. Now, the Kentucky State Police Detective Clayton Stamper, the case's lead investigator, testified in court that the two men went to lunch earlier the day with multiple other people, where a witness allegedly heard Mullins ask Steins if they needed to meet privately. The context of that request is still unclear. But according to the police, video footage places Steins and Mullins inside the judge's chambers later that day. Now, in his testimony, the detective Stamper said that Steins subsequently made phone calls from his phone as well as Mullins. Those calls, the detective testified to, were to Steins' daughter. Now, the video shown at the October 1st preliminary hearing did not include audio, didn't show the calls being made by the sheriff. But after those calls were placed, police says that Steins then committed the shooting. Now, the detective also said that the phones had been sent to forensic labs for examination, and though Steins' daughter's phone had not been examined at the time, the detective said authorities have interviewed the daughter. Of course, they haven't told us what she said. Anyway, while the case has moved forward to the grand jury on the charge of murder, Steins' legal team is gearing up for a legal defense of manslaughter. Still going to prison, but he's saying, give me a chance to get out. In an interview last week, Steins' attorney, Mr. Bartley, said the shooting occurred in the heat of the passion, said he believes the highest level of culpability should be no greater than manslaughter based upon the defense of extreme emotional disturbance. Now we'll have to see what the grand jury returns. Remember, you can indict a ham sandwich, because the prosecutor says this is the evidence, here's the indictment, go ahead and sign right there, and we'll get you all out of here for the day. The grand jury really has no real authority in there. They could sure say, no, we're going to present a no bill, but, Steins' attorney is laying that groundwork, I guess. But the prosecutors get what they want in the grand jury. It's going to be interesting, and hopefully we'll get a little more information once the grand jury indictment is returned as to what was the nature of that conversation and why did the judge have the judge's daughter's phone number in his phone. Was it because the judge was helping out Steins' wife and daughter because the sheriff is a bad guy? Or was the judge engaging in something nefarious with Steins' wife and or daughter? We don't know. And so that's where the speculation comes in. The record needs to be cleared up, and when it does, we will bring it to you. Next, we almost have a jury in the Delphi homicide case for Richard Allen. So defense attorneys for Richard Allen made a startling admission during Tuesday's jury selection. Now, the defense team revealed during their kind of mini opening statement to the potential jurors that hair was found in Abby Williams' hand. And guess what? It didn't match Richard Allen. And that's the first time that information has been made public. Now, attorney Andrew Baldwin commented during that mini opening statement preceding the jury selection to lay out that little bombshell. As you know, this is the jury selection for Allen, who is charged with 4 counts of murder in connection with the deaths of Abby and her friend Libby German back in February of 2017. Now, the Indiana State Police announced Richard Allen's arrest back in October of 2022. Now, while prosecutors say an unspent bullet found at the scene is linked to a gun owned by Richard Allen and cite dozens of confessions from him, Allen's defense team presented in their opening argument that those confessions were made under duress and weren't trustworthy. Now, a mini opening statement is oftentimes given in a bigger case. And sometimes the judge will say both sides come up with a brief statement of the case that can be read to the jury. In this particular case, Special Judge Francis C. Gull gave each party an opportunity to give their little version of what they believe the evidence may be, to give them an overview to make sure these jurors can be fair and impartial. Remember, opening statements is supposed to be nothing more than what you believe the evidence will be, and that goes for a mini opening prior to jury selection as well. Now, the defense also said in their mini opening that Allen confessed to details from the crime that were inaccurate. He also confessed to other crimes that never even happened, according to his defense team, which goes to the psychological state of Mr. Allen at the time. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Now, during the proceedings, 3 previous selected jurors were dismissed from the trial, bringing the total number of selected jurors down to 11. 1 was removed because they had some child care issues, others over health concerns, and a 3rd was dismissed for hardship. Now, 4 new jurors were selected by noon, bringing the total to 15. Now, by 1:30 yesterday afternoon, an additional juror had been selected, bringing the total to 16. However, the court planned to take a break, and one of the selected jurors may be challenged. Court was set to reconvene at 2 p.m. today with final word that the jury expected later in the afternoon. Now, due to the high-profile nature of the case, Allen's defense team had asked for a change of venue, and Special Judge Francis C. Gull, appointed by the Indiana Supreme Court to oversee the case after the original judge recused himself, determined that that was logistically challenging. So, what did she do? She brought in jurors from Allen County and transported them to Carroll County for the trial. Now, jury selection began on Monday, and the juries will be sequestered for about a month. More than 100 people are expected to testify between the defense and prosecution witnesses. Now, Judge Gull has scheduled to hear some evidentiary motions in the afternoon on Wednesday, and that will mark a break in the trial before an additional hearing on Thursday. And that hearing will take place in Allen County concerning the admissibility of widely circulated composite sketches in the case, and the state had filed a motion asking for the sketches to be excluded from trial. Now, opening statements are scheduled for Friday when the proceedings shift to Carroll County. And like I said, the prosecutors in the Delphi murder case want to keep jurors from seeing or hearing about 2 widely circulated composite sketches investigators released prior to their search for the suspect. Now, Tuesday morning, the state filed a new motion asking Judge Gull to prevent the defense or any of its witnesses from referencing those sketches during the trial without express permission from the judge. Now, law enforcement released these sketches with requests to the public to ask them help investigate the deaths. So Tuesday morning, the state filed a motion asking Judge Gull to prevent the defense or any of its witnesses from referencing those sketches during the trial without express permission from the judge. Now, law enforcement released these sketches with a request for public help as they investigated the death of Abigail Williams and Libby German. Now, the girls, as you know, went missing on the Monon High Bridge there in Delphi back on February 13th of 2017, and they didn't return that evening to meet their family. The searchers found the bodies on February 14th. Then on July 17th, 2017, nearly 5 months later, investigators released the drawings of a man wearing a hat based on reports of witnesses who saw a man in the area. And then on April 22nd, 2019, Indiana State Police held a news conference where they released the second sketch along with a video clip and extended audio clip. Now, the prosecutor, Nick McClellan, argues that the sketches are not relevant to this trial. He wrote in his brief, the composite sketches prepared were intended as an investigative tool to generate leads to identify a suspect. And in fact, these sketches were not related to the identification of Richard Allen as a suspect. So he also claims that the sketches should be excluded because they might prejudice or mislead the jury and confuse them. The defense has not yet responded to the motion, and the judge has not said whether she will consider the topic at the hearing and whether it will be held on Thursday. What it comes down to is the prosecution does not want to bring in these photographs because it shows that these photos aren't exactly the spitting image of Richard Allen. And that goes to, do we have the right guy? Do we have the wrong suspect in custody? We're going to have to wait and see how this comes out. Man, I wish Judge Gull would actually televise this. I know she's not going to do it now, but this is a case where it should have been televised. So many people, not only in the state of Indiana, but across the country, if not the world, have been following this case for years. I think we are entitled to see, but the judge disagrees. Not the first time a judge has disagreed with me, that we should be able to see all of the evidence in this particular case. And if the evidence is overwhelming, then the jury has a duty to convict Richard Allen. If the government fails to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt to each and every element of the offense charge, it is the jury's solemn oath and obligation to say not guilty in this particular case. But I think the world has a right to see if everybody is getting a fair trial, both the prosecution, the state, and the defense. Next on the docket, will the Menendez brothers be home for Christmas? Well, the Menendez brothers could soon walk free from prison after more than 30 years behind bars. There is going to be a press conference on Wednesday, and the prosecutor is expected to announce a significant development in the case against Eric and Lyle Menendez. Now, the district attorney there, George Gascon, has previously invited some of the brothers' relatives to attend the press conference as well. Now, the family are reportedly hopeful that the district attorney is considering asking for a revised sentence, which could see the brothers, now aged 53 and 56, to walk free from custody. Now, the district attorney could make a commitment within a week to resentence the duo, and if a jury at a potential retrial could find them guilty of voluntary manslaughter instead of murder, it would trigger the immediate release as they have served more than the maximum sentence. Now, Gascon has recently said that his office was going to scrutinize evidence that was not permitted in their trial, but he said he hadn't made any decisions just yet. But Gascon said he was reviewing the allegations made last year by a guy by the name of Roy Rosello, who was a former member of the band Menudo, which claimed that Jose Menendez, the dad, molested him as a teenager while he was working with the music executive back in the 1980s. Now, these allegations opened the door for the Menendez brothers' appeals over claims that critical evidence of their father's alleged abuse was not admitted in their trial back in 1996. Now, this comes amid obviously a lot of hype regarding the Netflix show, which focused on the crime. Now, the Menendez brothers were just 18 and 21 when they killed their parents, Jose and Mary Louise Kitty Menendez, inside their Beverly Hills mansion back in August of 1989. Now, the duo made a frantic call to police claiming that they returned home from the theater to find their parents had been murdered, prompting fears that, oh my gosh, there was a murderer running around Beverly Hills. But police announced they were arresting Lyle Menendez in March of 1990, 7 months after the crime. Now, what was the motivation? Well, the prosecutor said greed. The brothers stood to inherit some $14 million from their parents, and they were set on spending it shortly after their parents' deaths. Shortly after the parents were murdered, Lyle bought himself a Porsche Carrera. That's justifiable. The grief, a Porsche is not bad. Bought himself a watch and a couple of restaurants as well. Basically, the two brothers spent about $700,000 between the time of their parents' murders and their arrests back in 1990. Let me know what you think. Should the Menendez brothers get a chance? I don't know. Have they served enough time? Yeah, but that was total premeditation, ladies and gentlemen. I get they had mitigation. Let's admit it. Everybody's got mitigation. Everybody had a bad childhood, even when you were raised in the lap of luxury of Beverly Hills, I guess. But mitigation is something the prosecutor should have considered at the time. We've seen it all the time in cases where people get a better deal, so to speak, because of they have better mitigation. Look at the Gypsy Rose case, right? The boyfriend serving life in prison. She gets 10 years. Is 30 plus years for the Menendez brothers enough? Let me know in the comments below. Next, some teen killers learned their fate. Well, the Iowa Supreme Court reaffirmed the 35-year mandatory minimum prison sentence for a teenager who admitted to killing his Spanish teacher because of a bad grade, and then he beat her with a baseball bat. Willard Miller, who was 16 at the time of the murder, and other teens, they fatally attacked their 66-year-old teacher, a woman by the name of Nohema Graber, a teacher at the Fairfield High School. Now, back in 2021, Miller was sentenced to life in prison with a mandatory minimum term, and they challenged the sentence, arguing that imposing a set minimum before parole for juveniles was unconstitutional. But the Iowa Supreme Court unanimously upheld the lower court's ruling, stating that the mandatory minimum sentence for juveniles are legal as long as the circumstances are considered. The factors are considered by the judge, and the justices agreed that the sentencing judge properly applied those sentencing factors that the court had to consider. So Miller and Jeremy Goodale also received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 25 years for killing Miss Graber back in November of 2021 in a park that she often visited after school. Now, prosecutors had alleged, and turned out to be true, that the teens were angry over a poor grade that Miss Graber had given Mr. Miller. Like, I don't know, maybe this is why teenagers shouldn't be allowed to do anything. If they're going to kill their teacher over one bad grade, they're going to ruin their life and spend it in prison. Are you kidding me? Who thinks that way? But if you act intentionally, you got to face the consequences, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, all of the teens were prosecuted as adults, but their age prevented them from facing the mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder. Now, in Miller's sentencing, he did admit guilt and actually apologized, like most people do at sentencing, and his defense team pushed for immediate parole eligibility while the state asked for 30 years. Well, the judge said after 35. Next, we have an update on the missing wife. Now, I am going to remember this, okay? There was another case that we talked about years ago, and it was in a county in Texas spelled Bexar. I was corrected. It's pronounced Bexar County. So the Bexar County Sheriff deputies were seen digging through a landfill in hazmat suits, along with their little bright boots there near a landfill in San Antonio Monday. Who are they looking for? 51-year-old Susan Clark Simpson. Now, they have yet to find Mrs. Simpson, the mother of four, who vanished screaming from her $1.4 million mansion, Olmus Park, last Sunday. Now, Simpson's neighbors heard screams coming from a nearby wooded area shortly after watching the couple in the midst of a heated argument go towards the back bushes of their property. Well, officers arrived at the landfill location on Monday afternoon and said they were going to return until they find Miss Simpson. So at least there are police officers and cadets from the San Antonio Police Department who are out there looking for human remains. They are said to be searching for evidence connected to Suzanne, whose mother said Monday that she fears that her daughter is dead. Now, in the affidavit for the arrest warrant for Mr. Simpson's arrest, it was revealed that Simpson called his brother, Barton, after Suzanne vanished and apologized for all the problems that he had caused. The arrest affidavit also revealed the couple's youngest child told staff at school that her mom and dad were fighting pretty good. She told staff that her dad had hit her mom in the face and possibly pushed her into a wall, that her mom had a bruise on her elbow, and their dad had taken her mom's cell phone away. The mother of the missing mother of four, Barbara Clark, revealed this week that the phone call she had with Susan just hours before she had last been seen. Speaking at a vigil to honor her daughter, Clark said that she called me up and told me that Brad had done what Brad had done to her physically. Clark said Susan confided in her that about 9 p.m. that night on October 6th, and Simpson had injured her arm and her back. Now, Simpson is already in custody charged with family violence and unlawful restraint. He's being held on a $2 million cash bond and is scheduled to attend another hearing on Tuesday today. Now, Simpson of Olmos Park, which is near San Antonio, initially cooperated with police after reporting his wife missing, but guess what? He went silent after hiring an attorney. It's his right to do so, ladies and gentlemen. I know, but he must have cooperated enough to lead the police to say, let's go check out the landfill. Well, also on last Friday, police released a photograph of Suzanne earlier in the day before she vanished, showing her walking through the Argyle Club in the Alamo Heights area. Anyway, Suzanne was pictured alone at the exclusive members-only club wearing a knee-length dark dress and her hair down over her shoulders. Several hours after the photograph was taken, neighbors claimed they heard an aggressive fight between Suzanne and her husband, and that neighbor claims that he saw Simpson hitting and restraining his wife before they wandered off into the woods. Shortly after the interaction, the neighbor allegedly heard screams coming from the woods. Doesn't look good for the husband. I hope for the family's sake they find Suzanne. Next on the docket, this day in legal history. On October 15th, 1883, the United States Supreme Court struck down the Civil Rights Act of 1875, and it became as the Civil Rights Cases. Now, the act was sought to prohibit racial discrimination in public accommodations like hotels and theaters. However, in an 8-1 decision, the court ruled that the 14th Amendment did not apply to private businesses and individuals, only to state actions. Now, that ruling effectively legitimized segregation and obviously paved the way for Jim Crow laws, which institutionalized racial discrimination across the South for decades to come. It wasn't until the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that such discrimination was again outlawed and obviously found that discrimination is a violation of the 14th Amendment. And then on October 15th, 1991, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas was narrowly confirmed by the Senate as an Associate Justice to the United States Supreme Court. His confirmation process was marked by a lot of controversy because of a woman by the name of Anita Hill, a former colleague who testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee accusing the now Supreme Court Justice of sexual harassment. Now, despite the hearings, Thomas was confirmed by a vote of 52-48, becoming the second African-American justice to serve on the United States Supreme Court. And finally today, our dumb criminal of the day. Guess what? A Florida man, shocking, accused of trying to steal a generator that powered a traffic light. That's right. So a man is now in custody behind bars after he attempted to steal a generator that was powering a traffic signal in the wake of Hurricane Milton. Now, according to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, the incident happened Sunday in Sun City, where the Tampa Electric Company workers caught Soyal Zapata Dai unhooking the power-producing generator. And although Zapata Dai left the scene, one of the workers took a photograph of him and his license plate, where ultimately the deputies caught up with him at his house a short time later. He was arrested, and he's been charged with third-degree theft. He should be charged with some sort of looting. And you know what we do to looters in times of crises? Yes, that's right. That's right. Could be much more severe than going to jail on a third-degree theft charge. All right, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next time. And remember, the Constitution matters.